friends. More times than not, the internet will hate me and my videos will sound horrible when I try to speak to you live. So we are just going to pre-record and please interact like you're watching live, okay? So when you jump on this video, say hello, let me know if you have any plans for the weekend, what's going on with you, hashtag replay as always, so I can come back and say hello to you. Last week we talked about some things you needed to have in place and some really deep questions you needed to ask yourself when it comes to setting your goals. So if you haven't watched that video yet from Wednesday, I would suggest that you go back and you watch that. Today we're going to talk about part 2 of that. Okay, what happens after you start working towards your goal for a little bit. But let's backtrack and let's briefly go over those steps, okay? But definitely go back and watch Wednesday for those questions. So first, we're going to set a very specific goal. We're going to narrow in on exactly what we want to do and why. We're going to make sure that it's measurable and trackable. Yes, we are. We're going to put an end date on it, right? When you want to reach your overall goal. And then we're going to set up interval checkup dates in between just to make sure, that we're staying on track and that we are actually making progress. Super, super important. After that, we're going to make sure that we're ready and that we have everything in place that we need to get started so that excuses don't come up later on. Then we're going to ask ourselves, now that we're ready, now that we have everything in place, are we truly, truly going to be able to sacrifice what is needed to be able to reach our goals, okay? And that's going to look very different for every individual depending on what your goal is. But no matter what, when trying to strive for something that's truly important to you, sacrifices are going to have to be made, okay? And then lastly, we're going to invite God into the mix. Okay, we're gonna ask him to help us walk this thing out and make sure that what goals we have set for ourselves are in line with his plan for us. Okay, so that's a brief overview of what we discussed on Wednesday. But now, let's say that you have been working on these goals for a few weeks and you are at your first interval date, right? You're coming to see what progress you have made. This is the time when we will start to evaluate our process. Okay? Have we made changes? Can we see changes? Can we feel changes? If not in your body, definitely mentally. How is your spirit feeling with all of this, with what you're trying to do? Are you more stressed? Are you happy? Are you sad? What feelings are you going through, okay? Because the body and the mind and the spirit is all connected. And if one is out of whack, then we need to address it. So at this first checkpoint, take some inventory on how you're feeling in these 3 different areas. Journal it out, pray about it, definitely. Then you want to look at what you're like physically or manually doing to reach your goal. Are you sticking to the schedule that you set for yourself? Did you miss a few days? Did you shave off some time? Like let's say that one of your goals is to work out 5 days a week for an hour. That's a lot of time, especially if you're starting at 0, right? If you're starting from like no workouts to 5 days, that could be a lot. So did you achieve all 5 days? Did you go for the full hour? How did your body feel? Was it too much? Were you crashing? Were you in pain? Did you get hurt? Okay. And if you missed all 5 days, why? Or if you missed some of the 5 days, why did you miss those days? Was it because life happened? Maybe your schedule at work changed. Maybe one of your kids got sick. Maybe there was an emergency that forced you to take some days off from working towards your goal. Or Did you just not feel like it? It's very common, especially starting out, that we mentally get defeated before our habits change and before our bodies start to enjoy the workout that we do. We mentally psych ourselves out to like, I don't want to do this, I don't feel like it mentality. And it's always going to make it so much difficult to start again when you want to with that kind of mentality. So we need to understand why we didn't stick to the schedule the way we did. And your answer on this is going to kind of shape the next part of this process. Okay, so we need to evaluate why we didn't stick to the goal. But before that, are you enjoying the process? If we're not enjoying what we're doing, it makes it that much harder to stick with it, right? So let's say you want to change your eating habits. If you're eating foods that you don't like, that are disgusting and they have no flavor, whatever the case is, you're not going to eat it. It could be the healthiest thing in this world, prepared by the best chef ever, but if you don't like it, you're not gonna eat it, and you're not gonna stick to your meal plan. Point blank. Or if you're doing exercises, the exercises are too intense for you, you could risk injury, or it could prove to be too hard where you will feel like you are what's the word I'm looking for? You will feel more inadequate because the level at which you're starting your physical exercise is too high for you. So we need to make sure that we're starting at the right level. Do you have somebody in your corner that's cheering you on? Do you have support? Even if it's just from your spouse or your kids, your family, a friend, do you have somebody in your corner that you can share this excitement with, that you can share how you're feeling and, you know, some of the troubles that you're going through or some of the success that you're having as reaching your goal? Or, you know, if your goal is not even related to fitness, maybe you just need somebody to bounce ideas off, you know, like a sounding board. It's so important to have at least one person in your corner who can be your cheerleader and who can cheer you on and tell you to get off the couch when you need to get off the couch, or turn off the computer when you need to turn off the computer, okay? So you definitely want to get somebody, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an accountability partner, right? But just somebody that you can share this journey with. It really makes all the difference. Okay, so we want to evaluate our process and our progress. We want to look at if we're sticking to the schedule, if we're enjoying what's going on. We want to look at why, and then we want to get somebody that can be a sounding board for us during this process. And then lastly, after you've looked at the process, after you've evaluated, you need to make tweaks when necessary, okay? So you need to change what's not working into something that works a little better, okay? So if you set out to work out 5 days and you're like, I just can't do it, my work schedule doesn't allow it, then bring it down to 3 at least, okay? If you're one of those people that's like, you know, I'm trying to go to bed earlier, but I can't, you know, I'm up watching TV, then maybe you need to consider taking the TV out of your bedroom or leaving the computer or the phone out of your bedroom so that it's no longer an issue for you. So whatever is causing the problem, whatever is prohibiting you from sticking to that schedule, from sticking to the routine, you may need to eliminate it. Right? Those are those sacrifices that we were so willing to take a few weeks ago when we started working towards our goals that may have to change. And I want you to understand that it's not just falling in love with the end goal, but it's falling in love with the process. It's falling in love with being flexible. It's falling in love with finding what works for you. Because what works for you may not work for me. and vice versa. Okay? But that's why it's so important for us to be flexible and be willing to make these changes, okay? And have fun with it, especially if it's food. No one has the same palate as another person. No one. You may have a few foods that you know, like and enjoy that's common to each of you, but I guarantee that everything I like to eat, you may not like to eat, and vice versa. Okay? So it's these plans, these journeys to our goals are very individualized. So it's important to get hope. It's important to get feedback. It's important to bring God in on the conversation because He knows you better than anybody else knows you. And when you're struggling, He can help bring clarity. When you're weak, He can be, you know, that person, that spirit, that strength that's talking in your ear to push you a little further. Okay? So evaluate and tweak. Evaluate and tweak. This is something that's going to go on throughout the whole process, the whole journey until you finally reach your goal. And understand that when you start to tweak your process to what works, that end goal date may change. Okay? It may be pushed out a little further. Maybe not. It just depends on what your goal is and how much progress you see at those interval checkpoints. All right? But don't get so hung up on the goal. Find love in the process and be easy on yourself. Grace, grace, my friends. Grace, grace. This is not a straight race. It has curves and ups and downs and setbacks, but as long as you keep moving towards your goal, you will get there. I promise you. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Also, I'm working on something amazing that is coming out in October, and I will give you more details on that as we get closer, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna help a lot of you reach your health and fitness goals and also strengthen your faith because that's what we're here for. If you have any questions, drop them. I love you. Have a great weekend.